Series 18 of Top Gear aired from the 29th of January 2012 to 11th of March and gave us 7 episodes that I will unpack in this video because it seems this series of the show wasn't the most liked, not just by critics, but by the people working hard behind the scenes. But before we get into that, some context.
Turning left into Acacia Avenue, over there, go over there.
Top Gear had been off the air for half a year, but recent seasons had done a good job at keeping the viewing figures fairly high. Series 18 continued this, with an audience ranging from 5.28 million viewers to 6.25 million viewers. However, the show was reaching a difficult stage in its life, nearly 10 years after the revamp, and some were arguing Top Gear was becoming a bit of a pastiche of itself, with the forums harking back to Series 7 of the show, labelling it as the perfect balance of fact and fiction, cars and comedy. But that was all the way back in 2005, and the show still had to appeal to its younger viewers who enjoyed the boyish shenanigans of the trio. And that brings me on to the first reason as to why I think Series 18 is a brilliant slice of the Top Gear pie. It perfectly mixed the machines with the mayhem, making for a diverse range of madness across the 7 episodes. Jeremy and James's dive into Saab in episode 5, for example, is proper car journalism with the odd dash of humour for good measure. I mean, what do you expect? Noel Edmonds wasn't presenting it anymore.
And I shall be giving my opinion of the Chrysler Sunbeam TI.
But this made for a healthy contrast against sillier segments like episode 4's mobility scooter challenge.
Oh no!
This variation from episode to episode, granted, doesn't mean the individual shows have a balance of statistics and silliness, but the series does as a whole. And as a younger viewer at the time, this made me intrigued as to what was going to happen in next Sunday's Top Gear. So to further this argument, let's take a quick look into the individual episodes that make up Series 18 of this iconic car show. Episode 1 was a perfect start, an epic road trip across Italy in 3 era-defining supercars. Top Gear really were throwing out the big guns to create a childhood dream segment, still with a dose of...
Hi!
that.
I'm... Please talk to me.
It may be the only segment in the show, but it's just classic Top Gear. Beautiful cinematography, a great through line, and 3 presenters at their best. Plus, Series 18 Episode 1 was the episode that caused an entire generation to fall in love with the Lamborghini Aventador. Episode 2 showed us a more conventional format. It proved to be the most viewed episode of Series 18.
Acceleration is set. It's blinding.
The episode further develops a brilliant balance of motoring and madness, with a glorious segment on NASCAR and a classic road test of the Mercedes SLS AMG Roadster. But the real star of the show is James and Jeremy's look at the Chinese motor industry, a perfectly analytically witty film that has become one of the most apt and accurate the show ever produced. I mean, need I say more? During a behind-the-scenes interview, Clarkson described Series 18 of Top Gear rather optimistically, saying it's Top Gear as Top Gear should be this series. However, script editor Richard Porter disagreed. In his book entitled And On That Bombshell, Porter savagely tears into one particular segment of this series, the Sweeney Chase from episode 3. A VT which very much contrasts James's excellent yet more sensible track test of the Vauxhall Corsa VXR and Fiat Panda at the start of the show.
Steal it next week. Week 3 is a show for me. It's just a good laugh. Everything explodes. Yeah. Fantastic.
Porter actually mentions how he argued with Clarkson about whether the segment was funny or not, but Clarkson was adamant, saying the episode generated the most amount of supportive texts he ever received after a show. Clarkson later said, "A lot of people think I was being ironic or sarcastic. Honestly, I wasn't. Really, we were happy with it. It was an episode he truly liked, saying, I don't think we'll ever beat that." Porter, however, disagreed. He thought the finished item was, and I quote, "forced and pointless and a steaming puddle of runny turd on your telly," causing Clarkson to feel duty-bound to defend it. On hindsight, Porter admits he finds some star-studded parts of the segment genuinely funny. But as much as this episode brings addictively chaotic comedy, I doubt Porter agrees with me that Series 18 is Top Gear at its most tremendous. But still, we'll continue and leave the most quotable episode of Top Gear ever behind us.
Turn off the traction control.
Ah!
You have to hold it down for 10 seconds.
Episode 4 is classic Top Gear and a perfectly poignant example of why I and so many others miss this legendary show. It's a wonderfully formatted episode, starting off with James testing the intriguing and exotic Fisker Karma with some help from rock god Brian Johnson, because why not? This is followed by a twin test like no other from Jeremy, pitting the controversial Ferrari FF against the brutish Bentley Continental GT on an exact replica of Silverstone Circuit, except it's on ice.
I'm on ice! I've got the traction control off!
The main and most memorable segment of the show, however, is of course the ridiculously entertaining mobility scooter film, where the trio set out to try and make an affordable buggy for the masses. Jeremy wears a hat, James wears a hat, and Richard is behind a low wall. I mean, what more could you want? But in all seriousness, the show does a great job at balancing the silly antics out in the final race between the guys and ex-military soldiers. It's brilliant stuff. Episode 5 is a very car-heavy instalment of Series 18, but still an enjoyable watch that balances out the shenanigans that Top Gear were getting so slated for at this point in the show's history. It continues the more sensible themes that Clarkson picked up on in a behind-the-scenes interview when describing particular episodes in the previous series. The episode starts with a classic Top Gear race, entertaining and interesting to watch, but honestly a bit regurgitated, as it appeared in the previous Christmas's DVD with Hammond and May, Top Gear at the Movies, making this once exclusive VT seem like it was filling in a bit of a blank. Hammond also did a very similar film in Series 8, this time racing a flying man in a Porsche Cayenne instead of a Skoda Fabia rally car. Hammond really is great in this film, but it's a race format that we'd seen before. The rest of the episode claws it back, however, with another twin test from Jeremy, not on the snow this time, comparing two manic road races, the Maserati Gran Turismo MC Stradale and the Mercedes C63 Black, in classic fashion. The best part of the show, however, comes at the end. A wonderful send-off to Saab, the Swedish sultans of slicing a fine line between the sensible and the quirky, a truly great car manufacturer that sadly filed for bankruptcy in December 2011. Jeremy and James look over the Mark's greatest hits, celebrating what made Saab so great. It's certainly an emotional film. Episode 6 is an often forgotten gem in the Top Gear archives, which helps to further display how great Series 18 really is. Jeremy returns to the track in the middle of the show for a superb segment that's unusual for Top Gear of this time, driving two pre-war beasts in a Battle of Britain style comparison. The buttes in question are the German-built Brutus and the quintessentially British Bentley Meteor. It's a loud, fiery, celebratory film on the origins of craftsmanship and power. But the main star of the show is the segment on track day cars, which opens and closes the episode. It wonderfully displays the trio's chemistry as they play around with what are effectively big toy race cars. There's something so evocatively nostalgic about Richard Hammond driving his Morgan three-wheeler in the sunshine. It may not be remembered as one of the show's greatest hits, but it's a brilliant display of the classic Top Gear formula that keeps you smiling off into the sunset. But now onto a hot Top Gear take as we look at what, in my opinion, is a contender for the best episode of all time. Series 18, Episode 7, an action-packed season finale with the most engaging twists and turns, covering everything from classic cars to modern machines to F1 to cheap motor racing. The spectrum is astounding for a show that's only an hour long. First up, Hammond gives a brilliant blasting review of the F10 BMW M5, with an interesting comparison between the, at the time new, V8 and the old E60 generation V10 model. Then, in a bizarre twist, the news gets interrupted for an interview with Kimi Räikkönen, a man who is basically a monosyllabic comedian in a racing helmet. Next up is onto something really rather special, one of James's best Top Gear segments, where he gets to drive his childhood dream car, a 1961 Ferrari 250 California Spider. It's a heartwarming tribute to dreams of youth and how cars are art forms that capture our lust and imagination. It's also a perfect breather in an otherwise full force episode that rightfully shines light on a breathtakingly beautiful car, one of just 56 built that Chris Evans paid £5.6 million for. And thanks to the show's signature gorgeous cinematography, the car really does look stunning. The show moves on to casually put a rock god in the reasonably priced car. Slash really does slash the little brown Kia. And then it's on to what some critics have described as Series 18's redeeming feature, a truly tense and exhilarating segment with a trio by three cheap bangers, well they considered that in 2012, not really anymore, and do rallycross. One of the reasons I love this challenge so much is it looks like the boys are genuinely having fun. If I was to use any Top Gear film to show why the new Top Gear is rubbish, it would be this. Because unlike in the new show where the two northern delinquents bully the journalist for actually knowing stuff about cars, this challenge authentically shows that the original trio are great friends at heart, having fun with cars and going racing. It's a brilliantly formatted VT that takes the place of the cheap car challenge Series 18 is missing, and the final race between Richard and Jeremy is one you'll never forget. It's fabulous, so much so that back in the studio, Clarkson describes it as one of the best days of his life. Overall, the boys showed that compared to golf, motocross is cheaper and a hell of a lot more fun. And then in a crazy crossover to give you goosebumps, Slash returns to play Jessica for the closing credits. Perfect. Coming off the back of the unsuccessful India Christmas special, Series 18 really showed the presenters on top form with great variety throughout, including new inside gags, like Audi's constantly blocking studio pieces to camera in episodes 6 and 7. A year later, when filming Series 20 of Top Gear, Andy Willman stated in a behind-the-scenes interview that he viewed each series of the show like an album. And whilst Top Gear has its greatest hits, popular records, and songs with the most radio time, Series 18 is the one packed with underappreciated deep cuts, the kind of songs that just keep you coming back for more. Every second of Clarkson, Hammond and May's Top Gear is perfect, and Series 18 is no exception.